I am building a new computer, so I thought I'd do a video about the build process because it's going to be a little bit different this time. So far, the new PC is just temporarily assembled here on my coffee table, where I have my normal PC setup, where I sit on my fat ass playing pointless time-wasting computer games. Which is not entirely true, because my bum is actually a beautifully sculpted bum that has the likeness of a Greek statue of Apollo. But anyway, what I was planning to do with the new computer is that instead of all the hardware goes into my computer case that I've been using for the past 10 years, I thought I would make a sort of open upright assembly, sort of like this, only upright with the motherboard on one side of an upright board, power supply on the other side, and the all-in-one liquid cooler sort of resting horizontally on top. But as it turns out, when this cooler is out in the open and not inside a case, I can hear the pump noise from the cooler. I don't know if you can with this microphone. But even at the lowest setting, the pump makes a sort of faint, very faint whine. That's going to be pretty annoying in the long run. So I had to get this noctua air cooler instead, which is a little bit big and heavy, and I don't want it to sort of be hanging on an upright motherboard. So instead I will have to make an assembly with the motherboard like lying horizontally. And what I plan to do is make a wooden side table over here with the computer hardware sort of as part of the side table. Yeah. So to build this side table, I am fortunately a scrapwood hoarder, so I've got loads of scrapwood. And lots more back here. Excuse the mess in my workshop. I'm building a new work table, which is this one, which is just like just pretty basic so far. But anyway, for the tabletop, I had this. I think it's part of a shelf, which is fortunately pretty flat and even. Which is usually not the case with these cheap shelves you buy in hardware stores. And for the table legs, I found this. I've got 4 of these. I think it was part of some IKEA furniture I had 20 years ago. I'm fairly certain I've had these for 20 years, which is, I mean, that's the reason why you hoard scrapwood, because you wait a decade or two and you will find some use for it. To keep the table legs together, I think I'm going to use this long piece I've got up here, and to assemble everything I've got a doweling jig for drilling holes for wood dowels. So fairly basic side table, and the idea is that I'll have the motherboard lying here, then I'll have space for putting stuff here, or for the cat, she can sit and admire my new computer, or use it as a scratching post maybe. And then I'll make a hole underneath the motherboard to just route the cable for the power supply, and then have the power supply and hard drives and whatnot underneath the side table. So yeah, that's the plan so far. I took the IKEA furniture pieces apart with the handsaw, and fortunately, it turns out that the longest pieces are more or less exactly the height I need. So that's good. All I need to do is sand this bit and plug these holes. In the meantime, I've removed the AIO cooler and I'm getting ready to install the new air cooler. And yeah, apart from the noise, it was probably a good idea to get rid of this one, because I really, really don't like all the cables. I mean, you wouldn't see them when they're inside a cabinet, but now that I'm building like an open case where the point is that I can see my hardware. Yeah, this is just a mess. I mean, 2 cables for the pump, power supply and the RGB bling lights in the pumps, and then 2 cables each for the 2 fans for power and for RGB bling bling. That's not really any good way to make this look nice. So the new CPU cooler is ready to be installed, and the cat is not helping at all. So yeah, now I just need to make some more thermal paste. I make my own thermal paste by chewing off chunks of a copper pot and then chewing them to a fine paste. And then I apply it with a Japanese brush made from the chest hairs of samurais that have shaven their chests with samurai swords. Yeah, I like to build my computers in a manly man's way. And now I got the new CPU cooler installed, and this is all looking much tidier and nicer. However, turned out that the sort of faint whining noise I was hearing might not have been from the pump after all. It's probably some coil whine from the power supply. Again, I'm not sure if you can hear it in this microphone. But yeah, it's very faint now, and I put the power supply down here because that will sort of be the arrangement I will have when this thing is on the table. This thing will be below the table. I will be sitting over here with like a wooden tabletop between me and the power supply. And when I'm sitting over there, I can't hear the coil whine. So yeah, it's fortunately not going to be a problem. And hopefully the coil whine won't be a problem for Sophia here, because this is the place where she likes to sleep next to me when I'm playing dumb games. So yeah, she will be next to the new computer and the new PSU a lot of the time. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm running a few stress tests on the system to see if the CPU cooler's fans are up to snuff. Yeah, they're doing quite good so far, and are very quiet. But yeah, it's Noctua fans. They're very good. I've been using them as case fans for many years. Noctua is good German. Yeah, well, I was about to say good German engineering, but it's an Austrian company, so good Germanic engineering. And also the coil whine from the power supply, once the system is actually doing stuff and drawing power, more than idle power from the power supply, it seems that the coil whine mostly disappears. So that's good. Now I've sanded most of the offending parts of the table legs. First on my disc sander and then a bit by hand. However, some of the parts like this, I'm not going to bother too much making it look nice, because the place the table is going to be, and you'll only see it from the front and one of the sides. So like this bit, I'll have at the back underneath the table where nobody will see it, so it won't need too much sanding. And it is one of the most fundamental principles of woodworking, is that you should avoid all unnecessary sanding you possibly can. So next are all these small holes, which I'm going to plug with some wood plugs. I have a couple of wood plug cutters that just cut plugs out of a piece of wood. The plugs are slightly smaller at the bottom, so you just hammer them in the holes you want to plug with a bit of wood glue, and once the glue is dry, you saw off the top with a flush saw. And yeah, of course on bare wood you will see that there's a hole that has been plugged, but all of these table legs and the whole table are going to be painted anyway, so you won't see all those repairs. What I want to do next is make the tabletop, because if I make the table leg assembly so it like fits this piece, but I somehow completely mess up this piece, and I have to find another piece of scrap wood that's not the same dimensions and this one and won't fit the table leg assembly, that would be mildly inconvenient. So what I want to do next is route some aesthetically pleasing edge around the tabletop, possibly new classical, but we'll see. For that purpose, fortunately, I have lots of router bits and what is maybe one of the worst router tables in the entire world. And it's a bit of an insult to this lovely router, this Triton router I have, which is one of my favorite power tools in my workshop. It's a 2.4 kilowatt motor, which is around 3.25 horsepower, which is around twice as much as your average Puck Maxi. So yeah, it deserves a much nicer router table, and I have actually bought a router table insert that fits, and my plan with my new work table is to cut out this middle section here, so I can have various insert boards. For example, a router table insert board, and in the long run, various other inserts for various other, as of yet, undecided purposes. But anyway, to try and route the edge, I fortunately have an offcut piece from the tabletop that I can practice with and see how it goes. So that's all the edges routed and done, and it turned out pretty okay. Yeah, I'm satisfied. I just used this router bit for the bottom and this one here for the top. And yeah, it needs to be said again, this is a lovely router. I love it very, very much. And next I need to drill the holes for the motherboard, or rather for the motherboard standoff screws. I got these extra long standoff screws because regular motherboard standoff screws are only this tall, and I want to route this power cable underneath the motherboard, so that needs around 2 centimeters in height. And no, you're not supposed to play with that, okay? Right, so to precisely place the holes, there's one challenge involved in that, because the Mini ITX motherboard specification specifying the exact placement of the holes, yes, this is all very interesting, isn't it? Yes. The specification is in inches, so it says like this hole, which is at the rear of the board and on the side of the PCIe connector, which is the hole I want there. It is 0.4 inches away from this edge and 1/4 inch from this edge, which is 6.35 millimeters and 10.16 millimeters. And the other hole down here, it is 6.1 inches, which is 154.94 millimeters. It's, yeah, that's awkward. So what I'll do instead is that I figured out I need the first hole there in order to get the motherboard placed roughly where I want it, and the second hole should just be somewhere along this line to put the whole thing at a right angle to the rear of the tabletop. So to precisely drill the hole, I will be using this plate, as a drill template because it has all the holes exactly in place, of course. So what I would ideally have liked to do for drilling the holes in the tabletop is just place this exactly where it needs to be and then clamp it down, and then drill through the holes, the 4 holes. Just drill some short, shallow holes with a 2.5mm drill because that's the size that fits in these holes. But to fit the standoff screws, I need the holes to be 3mm wide. So then I would have removed this and drill all the way through the 4 holes I made with the 3mm drill. But because I am missing 2.5mm drill and some of the other smaller sizes here because I've broken all of them, instead I've drilled the first hole with a 3mm drill, and then I put the metal plate down with a nail through, drill the next hole, put the metal plate down again and put a nail through again, and now I'm drilling this next hole. And thankfully, in order to remember which holes I need to use, they're all conveniently marked with A. So yeah, that's one of the rare occasions in woodworking where you actually get some help from a bunch of A-holes. And that would appear to have been a success. Next is the last tricky part I need to do with the tabletop, because as you have no doubt observed, the standoffs are not long enough to go all the way through the wood. So in order to be able to put a knot on the other side, I need to drill a hole from the other side and drill it so it is exactly like, around 4mm thick, so that the standoffs can go through. And in order to achieve that, I'll just set the depth stop on my pillar drill to the exact depth. And this pillar drill here is awful, don't buy it. As you can see, it has so much play. But to drill the holes from the other side, I have some Forstner bit I got from Dieter Schmidt Fine Tools webshop, which is a very fine webshop with lots of fine tools. And Dieter Schmidt has a very good selection. I can heartily recommend him. And just to be clear, Dieter has not sponsored this video in any way, but he's more than welcome to do so. And I will not only endorse him further, but he will also be my very special fine friend if he decides to sponsor me. So yeah. And that was a success. I have tested that I'm able to fasten a nut from the other side in all of the 4 holes, so good. The almost last thing to do with the tabletop is to cut a circular hole for the cables. And yeah, I thought I'd just do a circular hole because that requires the least amount of effort, but in my pursuit of low effort craftsmanship, I forgot that this saw here, it makes rather messy cuts. So the absolutely last and final thing to do is to just get the router and route a nice edge around the hole to make it appear like that was the intention all along. And again, my beloved router provides me with comfort and joy, and the messy cut has been fixed. This looks a bit nicer, although still it's only the holes where the cables will go, and it will be hidden underneath the motherboard so no one will see it. But it will be in the same room where I sleep, and I wouldn't be able to sleep knowing that somewhere in my vicinity there was a messy cut like there was before. Now it's gone and it's fixed. Yay! The absolutely final thing to do with the tabletop is to paint it. So I have sanded everything to 320 grit. Well, everything. The top, of course, not the bottom. Don't be ridiculous. So to paint it, I'm just using ordinary spray paint from Harald Nyborg. That's about the only thing I ever buy from Harl Nyborg. For any international viewers, Harl Nyborg is a Danish retail chain that sells tools and whatnot. And Harl Nyborg is, let's just say, Harl Nyborg is not Gita Schmidt. Some may have been wondering what I'll do about the graphics card. The graphics card, of course, goes into the PCIe slot here. And normally when the motherboard and everything is mounted inside a computer case, the graphics card would be held in place with the screws here in the expansion slots. But since we don't have any of that, since the hardware is all out in the open, the only thing that would hold the graphics card in place would be the PCIe slot itself. And although it could technically hold it, it would be rather insecure, since it wouldn't require much of an accident, something hitting the graphics card, and yeah, the PCIe connector would snap. So to hold the graphics card securely in place, I got this vertical mounting bracket, which you would normally use inside a computer case to mount your graphics card vertically instead of it actually being this way around. So you could better have a look at your very expensive graphics card and admire how it looks. But for practical purposes, I will plug this PCIe riser cable in here, and then have this metal bracket mounted on the tabletop around here, and then it has mounting screws for holding the graphics card in place. It actually came with this other part, which you would use to fit inside your computer case to sort of position the graphics card exactly where I want it, but I won't be needing this at all. I'll just need this, and I'll just drill a couple of holes here at the bottom to mount it to the tabletop. Hey, Sophia. Hi. To screw the graphics card bracket to the tabletop, I need a little bit of wood as a spacer between the graphics card bracket and the tabletop, because I want the graphics card bracket to be relatively level with the motherboard. And I needed some hardwood because the screws that go into the spacer will be relatively short, so the harder the wood, the more secure the screws will be. And in my scrap wood collection, I found this piece. I needed a piece that was around 3 centimeters thick, and this is 2.8 centimeters. Perfect, has almost a perfect length. And yeah, just some piece from, I don't know where, that was up here in this part of my scrap wood collection. Which again underscores how vital and necessary it is to hoard all the wood you possibly can. Even a piece like this, I've forgotten where it's from. I don't know where these watermarks came from. I can't remember. But I've had it in my scrap wood collection because it would be useful one day, and now it is. So hoard everything. Every single last piece can be useful at one point. Everything has value. Everything is good. And that's the graphics card bracket screwed onto the wood piece with just a couple of screws and washers. And also gave the wood a little bit of spray paint, but not much because I'm nearly out of paint, and I don't want to get on my bicycle and go out and get more paint because it's cold outside. And also I gave the wood piece a 10-degree angle because angles are nice. I like angles. And because I'm nearly out of paint, I suppose I'm finished painting the tabletop. I would have liked this bit to have a little more paint, because if this thing will focus, this is end grain, so it like soaks up spray paint like mad. But yeah, this will have to do. The top came out pretty nice, except for There were some knots in the wood that had cracks in them that I didn't notice before when it was just bare wood. That's something you suddenly notice when you start painting, but yeah, I can live with that. Um, and I can certainly also live with the underside being neither sanded or really painted. Because although, as mentioned before, I wouldn't be able to sleep if I knew that somewhere in my vicinity there was a messy saw cut. It's quite the opposite with sanding and painting. I can sleep wonderfully and with a big smile on my face if I know that somewhere in my vicinity is a surface that I didn't have to sand and I didn't have to paint. Yeah, so I got a bit impatient to try and see how the tabletop and everything would fit in the space next to my couch. So I just made some temporary table legs using the remaining pieces of IKEA furniture I hadn't taken apart. And yeah, amazingly, everything fits like almost like hand in glove. I'm very glad that I angled the graphics card like that because it just fits within a few centimeters of the monitor mount and the keyboard tray and everything I have over here on the sim rig. So that was quite lucky. Only thing is, now I really need to sand and paint and make these pieces look nice because they really don't look nice next to my new tabletop and everything. But what I need to do first is put up some pieces of acrylic board around the hardware just to protect it from everyday accidents like sneezing and snot landing on the motherboard, or guests with children that want to admire and touch my new computer with their lovely, delicate little child fingers covered in Nutella. So yeah, stuff. So that's what I'll be doing next. To hold the pieces of acrylic board, I'm just making some very simple holders, just from some strips of wood I cut from scrap wood, of course. And I'm just like gluing them directly together. It's not going to be super strong like that, but I'm going to hold up some small pieces of acrylic board. So to space them out, I found some what do they call sticks for stirring paint. They're like 3.5 millimeter thick, and the acrylic board is 3 millimeters thick. So yeah, it should be an okay fit. And I got loads of these because that's of course also wood that I keep, because as Marcus Aurelius famously said, any piece of wood can be useful at any point in your life.
I'm not sure.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And this is how the acrylic plates and the holders turned out. So now the computer has some protection from some accidents. I'll probably do these holders differently at some point because it's all a bit modern looking compared to the sort of vintage style of the tabletop. And also all of these I'll need to do probably also attempt some vintage style. However, this one I need to keep because it's very good for just holding up the monitor. It's actually part of a music sheet holder I got to build this monitor holder. However, the actual sheet holder was a bit too big and metal, but I kept it because scrap metal. But yeah, I got it from Thomann Deutschland, which is a very good German web store for all kinds of music gear and audio gear. I got my piano from there, and I think that's actually two German stores, online stores, I've said something positive about, and I've said bad things about one Danish company. So that's like it's Germany 2 points and Denmark -1. So I should probably before finishing this part of the video, think of some Danish store to say something positive about some place connected with computers or woodworking. Like maybe, ooh, yeah. Ooh, this one is good. This one is worth 5 points. Bauhaus. I love going to Bauhaus in Hillerød. So 5 points to Denmark because we have Bau. It's actually a German company. Yeah, so that's Germany 7 points and Denmark -1. Yeah. Yeah, and I think so on this dramatic turn of events, it's probably a good time to end this video. Well, a time to end this part of the video. Hopefully, next part there might be some opportunity to even the score. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But thanks for watching, and God bless.